G'day everyone, we're here with a follow-up from something we did a couple of weeks ago, Potts.
Yeah, so like about 3, 4, 5 weeks ago, we had a show and we had Rexy on, and we were intended to do a Q&A, but we got overextended doing the review of Caulfield and we ran out of time, but got Rexy back here today, and here we go. Welcome back aboard, mate.
Hello Rexy. Now, people who've joined us previously in the Top Better chat room will, the Pro Better live chat room, will realise, will know Rexy, and I get in there where I can, and Potts is there every Saturday. It's been a very, very useful tool for a while. So we just thought we'd get Rexy in and talk about his experience of A, getting Potts a set, and B, the chat room. So
yeah, so the first question is, mate, so last time you were on, you mentioned that you had a horse that you had a share in. That's Ralph calling us, so we'll just ignore Ralph, he'll be here soon. So where did your love of racing start? When did it start?
Well, actually, I used to hate racing when I was a kid. I used to watch World of Sport growing up in the 70s, and I used to love the footy talk that they all went on with. But every week, the racing would come on, and Jack Elliott and Bill Collins would present for about 15 or 20 minutes. And to me, it was just a whole lot of repetition. They showed the last 400 metres. And I couldn't understand why there were 8 races for the day, because it was just 8 races all exactly the same, with the bloke going blah, 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 blah. And like a lot of other footy fans, we didn't understand it. But I was staying at my grandma's house on the Thursday before the Melbourne Cup in '79, and she was going to the Cup, and she said, "I'll have a 50 cents on something for you, just pick something out of the paper." So it was the Herald, the good old days of the Herald, and I went to the market, and Dulcify was 3 to 1. I thought, well, 3 to 1 at 50 cents, I'm going to get $1.50. Doesn't sound worth it. So Hyperno was at the time second pick at 7 to 1, and I thought 7 times 50 cents, that's worth it for a kid who's just at school. So I said, I'll back Hyperno for him. So I watched the Cup. It was the first time I'd ever had any interest in a horse race ever. And I was ignited instantly. Short half out. I mean, it was one of the most dramatic finishes of all time.
Salamander, wasn't it? Or
Salamander, Harry White, Roy Higgins. And an absolute classic. Dulcify unfortunately broke down, so that was disappointing for the industry. But I was on and hooked from that day on. And now I understand why there's 8 races on a day, and why they're all different classes and ages and genders, and 9 races now.
Yeah, fantastic. So that, as a kid, Melbourne Cup. So when did you start having a regular bet on a Saturday?
Probably after I left school and in the 80s.
Yeah.
And I was a pretty average punter back then. I was always a really good shopper, something I've always done from the day I started going to races. When I was probably 18 or 19 and started going to races, so I was really good at watching the ebbs and flows in the ring, the good old days when the ring was robust.
So for our younger viewers that might go to the races now, just tell them how big was the ring back in the 80s at Flemington?
Oh, look, if you went there on Cup Week, when a lot of people did, the length of the rails, I don't know what is it in metres. It must have been 100 metres long. There must have been perhaps 30 bookies along the rails, and then there'd be 25 off the rails. And that was just the main ring. Then you had all these other, certainly during Cup Week, all the other areas, out on the front lawn. There'd be 6 guys out on the front lawn. Even if you went to provincial races, you'd see, there'd be 20 bookies at a provincial meeting. And Benatar, who I part owned, I went to a Kyneton meeting about 4 or 5 years ago, and there were 2 bookies there. That was my first provincial meeting for years. So it's amazing the difference back from the halcyon days to now, where obviously a lot of punters are at home watching, like I am. I've converted from having to be there in the ring, watching the bookies, to now watching on dynamic odds and watching the corporates rather than the bookies.
Although the industry's allowed the corporates to take ownership of all the recreational money, and so that's where the market is now. Unfortunately, that's what we've got to deal with. Which is that's okay if they're required to bet to some minimum bet rules. So let's hope that all works the way it's intended. So you mentioned there that you had, in the previous one, you had that mare. I think who did you say had it?
Yeah, Mayfield Smith.
Oh yeah. So how many horses have you had a share in?
Quite a few. I probably had I reckon 15,
right.
10 to 15, and I had a lot of success. I've actually every horse bar one was a winner.
Oh, wow.
So
Outstanding.
I bought a lot of tried horses and jumped them. I'm a massive fan of the jumps races. So you can certainly increase your chances of getting a winner if you buy a tried horse and pick it carefully. Of course, you can't just go and pick up any rubbish at the dispersal sales and expect it'll jump and win. Look, the first jumper I bought, the first horse I bought, turned out to be a champion, Tennessee Blue.
Oh.
And I tried for 6 months to buy a horse. I rang Jim Houlihan up and said, Jim, I want to buy a horse. Can you find one for me? And I thought he could be back 3 days later and just say, yeah, mate, I've got one for you. It's a dispersal sale or a hand-me-down or something from somewhere. 6 months later, he said, Mark, I can't find anything for you. So I started hunting myself, and I went to a Lindsay Park dispersal sale over in Adelaide, flew over there, got Brian and Michelle to look at horses for me, because I got to admit, I can't tell a fetlock from a difflock. It's pointless me looking at them. And I picked out 2 just on pedigree, and he looked at both of them for me. I picked Tennessee Blue because it was a full brother to Memphis Blues, who was a champion filly at the time, a Group 2, Group 3 winner. Also won a lot of money off, so that's kind of like drives me when I go buying horses, is have I backed the mum and won them?
Which one's looked after in the past.
So he looked at both the horses and he said, this one here, he explained the shoulder formation and the overall conformation of the horse. He said, this thing won't be able to jump an icy pole stick. And someone did buy it and jumped it and ran unplaced in a Gula hurdle. And that was the sum total of
Yes, mate.
that one. But the other horse, he raved about. He said, this thing here, beautiful conformation for jumping. This horse will jump. He couldn't tell me whether it would win a race or not, but it had 10 starts and won a Balaclava Maiden. We sent it down to Jim Houlihan.
No, that's all right.
And I've got to pay all due respects to the great Jim Houlihan, because he rang me. The horse had been spelling at Lindsay Park, so the horse wasn't fit, ready to race. He had it for 3 weeks, and he rang me and he said, oh, you've bought a good horse. And I said, what do you mean good horse? Do you mean we'll win a Class 3 at Cranbourne? He said, you'll win a really good race with this horse. And that was after 3 weeks of him just potting around the stable. And he went on to win a Grand National Hurdle and a whole bunch of races.
And I still think if you go to Jim Houlihan's farm, they're digging up the tins full of cash that are buried in the paddocks around there from said plungers on days like that.
Well, speaking about tried horses, DK's one that dabbles his hand in buying tried horses.
Yes.
He bought one recently, it was a maiden, and managed to get a maiden win at Geelong,
yeah.
2 weeks ago, and here it is today in a 58, and it's not without a hope at $15. So,
was that the tweet that went out with a lot of excitement?
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I missed it, but in the post race, I believe he was interviewed on racing.com, so he was cheering in the grandstand, so they grabbed him and...
Gift of Music's the name of the horse.
Yeah,
and
that was the tweet, I remember it.
And Trav Noonan, who's a fan of the show and does a bit for TPR, he managed to grab DK and they did the post-race interview. And I have to give a bit of a shout out to Matty Clark at Betfair too. He was standing next to DK and I think he busted his 4th rib when DK gave him the biggest bear hug of all time after that horse won. So congratulations to all involved there. It was a little project for DK and it just shows sort of what it means, like the ownership, the experience.
I can tell you 4 weeks ago, DK was saying to me, Potts, never buy a horse. And 2 weeks ago, he's going, what a wonderful game it is. So, good on you, DK. Good luck today, mate.
Nothing beats it. You can have massive days on the punt. You can back 20 winners in a day. You can come home with your cargo pants with the side pockets full of cash, which I've done. Nothing beats being involved in a winner with a bunch of mates.
Yeah.
And with Benatar, like I'd be in the shower 3 months later, just washing my hair, and I'd go, oh, Benatar, what a day that was. But the days when you win on the pump, they're gone after a few days.
Yes, yeah. So you got him now, or you?
No, I got 3 kids now.
Yeah.
So 3 kids, 2 at private school.
There you go.
Unless I can guarantee success financially, then they're out of the picture. And that as much as I've had a lot of luck and a lot of success, it's still a lottery. Yeah.
So, in that you mentioned there you got in the betting in the 80s and that period of time. So, do you still do your own form? When was the time you did the form the most? What do you?
Yeah, I did my own form all the way back then in the 80s and 90s, and I was like a lot of regular punters, had great days and had savage bad days. I wasn't a great punter, I've got to admit now, and I look back, like for instance, early 90s, I cottoned on to Clan O'Sullivan nice and early. And great name, and he was a brave front runner. And I was a uni student, didn't have much coin, but
Black Opal, didn't you? I think.
Oh, he won the time-honoured Ballina bracelet.
Oh.
He then went on. They actually won the Magic Millions.
Right.
He went to Canberra, won the Black Oval. He then won the main slipper lead up.
Yep.
Todman Stakes. So he just went everywhere. He raced in the Brisbane Summer Carnival
right.
in November, December, January, March Black Oval, then again the Todman, and then went in the slipper. So I backed him all the way through there for the Golden Slipper. I backed him at 8 to 1, 7 to 1, 5 to 1, 9 to 2, 7 to 2. I had him going for an annual income.
Yeah.
And on the day I turned up to the slipper with a bunch of mates and I'd foraged together another $1,000 of cash. And there was only one danger, that was Burst, written by Shane Dye. Do you reckon I would have had 500 or 1,000 on Burst? No, because I had backed the Clan to win so much, but they were all with the off-course bookies.
Yeah.
Back in those days, the Landrys and the Tidies. I wasn't going to get any money until a week later when they'd send checks in the mail, so I had to have cash. So I had another 1,000 on the Clan at even money on the day.
You went around even money to
He went around 10 to 9. So I had the extra 1,000 on him just to have cash on the day, and he got rolled on the second last stride. Burst got him. So absolute monumental disaster. A year's income gone by in a flash. Not even would I have saved on Burst, I would have won on the race. So I'm totally different now. Now I'll back 4, 5, 6 runners in a race. I'm very similar to your model, and it used to be easy to watch races back then because I'd only have to concentrate on one horse and see how it's going. But now I've got runners going everywhere. Leaders, horses at the back, horses swooping, horses on the rails. It's hard to watch them, but you make more money this way, that's for sure.
Yeah. So what was the evolution of that? When did you start to take it more seriously? So you went from a situation where you know, like most of us. I mean, I was a mediocre punter in the 90s. My story is very similar to yours, to be honest. And I started taking it seriously probably in the early 2000s when you could actually bet off course via the phone. You didn't have to go to the races every week. So I started taking it a bit more seriously. And I started taking it really seriously in 2009 and evolving the model that I use now. So how did that evolution go for you?
Yeah, I was very fortunate because my reputation amongst my friends and peers is as an awesome shopper, and I ended up getting a gig with a punter that lives in the Gold Coast, goes to the Gold Coast races every Saturday, and needed someone. He had someone stationed in the Melbourne ring and someone stationed in the Sydney ring. I don't think that happens now, but back then, this is probably mid-2000s, can't remember the exact dates, but I used to sit there in the ring with my mobile phone, before mobile phones were legal at that time, but there were so many guys in the ring doing this that, I don't know, it was kind of like overlooked by the officialdom. And he would tell me which horses he was going to back in the race. He'd say, I'm interested in 1, 4 and 11. And I would have to watch the ebb and flow of the market and ring him and say, I think this is going off, I would take the price. He would quickly take the price in Brisbane, and then I would just, in Gold Coast, and I would just cross my fingers, please wait for the TV to go for $3.60, $3.40, $3.20, $3, and I'd look like a genius. So at first I just did the job to get the 150 cash in the mail, but after about 3 or 4 weeks I thought, oh God, this guy, he backs winners all the time. And he avoided the false favourites, which I didn't understand. Then all the ones that the media guys are all over, and your average punter thinks, oh, this is immoral. Did you see it flash home last start? Did you see it get checked 3 times and should have won? Those horses that start unders because of all that media, he would shy away from them. I'd be thinking, he wants 1, 11 and 14. Why not the 5? The 5's immoral. And so often he'd be spot on. So I started backing those horses.
You're not going to tell us who that was?
Well, I'm happy to say his name, but he was just a punter. He was actually getting his mail from somewhere else.
Right, okay.
He had sensational mail, and I think his source of mail changed.
Yeah.
Occasionally, he'd get a guy for 2 years, and then he'd move on to someone else. That bloke would fall off, or he'd give it away, so I never knew where the money was coming from, where the real mail was coming from. But it was sensational mail, and. I used to savage the ring some days. Victor Maher, my old favourite, he was off the rails, but Victor would be betting to 101% sometimes he'd the rails bookies would be at 114, and Victor would just turn 4 of them, just give them a roll of the board, and they were sensational days. And like I said, the cargo pants, I came home, I had to wear cargo pants to the races because I needed the extra pockets on the side, because it was all cash.
Yeah.
It was all cash. So I used to come home with bucket loads of cash. So we had savage.
And what year was that?
As well. Probably, I reckon, it might have been like 2003 through to about 2006 or 7.
Excellent.
It was about 3 or 4 years that I went really well. Unfortunately, I got the arse, my own fault. Because I'm programmed to get the best price at all times, I can't help myself. And I actually knocked the price off in the ring on one day. I could see it going off. I took it as I was calling him, but there was another guy in the ring who was getting the same mail.
Right.
And he complained to the bloke who was providing the mail, saying, "This bloke in Gold Coast, spotter in Melbourne's knocking your prices off." You know, I knocked it off once, and so I got a warning, and then I did it again. A couple of days later, and I was cut off.
Right.
Which was regret that.
Yeah.
Massively. That's why I mostly bet off the rails. Mostly bet with people like Victor Marr, because he wouldn't impact on what happens on the rails. But if I went and had a bet on the rails, usually I was betting small enough that it'd go unnoticed.
Yeah.
But our reputation grew, and some of the really big guys, Ed Campagna, I had a bet with him. That's the one where he turned it off. I thought, for Ed, this was a tiny bet, but he still turned it off. And unfortunately, I can't. I mean, it's impossible for me not to go with the best price. If I see it's going off, I have to have it.
Good stuff. So what happened after that?
So then I had to find a new way. You just got to keep evolving and finding new ways. So I just bet for myself and started listening to I used to do my own form, obviously, but then as professional life became more serious, I just started looking for people to listen to. So I worked out who the good judges were and who the average judges were, and there's been some people on the way that I've followed: Brendan Tupper, Dean Lester, Mark Hunter, all those.
Yeah. If you listen to those guys regularly, and I say this to the punters, that they're all good judges. You can read the way they talk about certain horses, and there are clues there if you get to know them well enough.
It's similar with the trainers too, Potty. If you listen to all the trainer interviews, you get to learn how to handle each of the different trainers. Yeah. Some of them will give you nothing, and you've just got to try and work it out when they do talk one up, and then others, Gay, for example, just talks everything up, and then you've got to try and decipher it from there.
Yeah, some of them have got a good doosra, and some of them bowl medium pace.
Especially for pre-post, I do a lot of futures betting.
Yeah.
And some of those post-race interviews are absolutely like, I remember David Hayes, Irish Lights after Fleming. You can just see the smile from ear to ear, and you can just tell by the undercurrent of his discussion, he knows he's got a good one. Yeah. And they'll quite often tell you where they're headed with it. So I won a fortune on Irish Lights in the 1,000 guineas because of a race he won at Fleming in September, based on him saying, and also his father, Colin, when he spoke about Zabeel, he was almost having an orgasm as he talked about it, and he went on to become a multiple Group 1 winner and a champion sire. So they give away a fair bit in those interviews.
Now, Rexy, I'm one that doesn't have a typical Saturday. My Saturdays are very different from probably most others. Take us through what your Saturday entails.
Well, I spring to life about 6:37 every day, no matter what. My wife thinks it's crazy. She says, "What are you getting up at 6:37 for?" So I was just looking for the scratchings. Want to see whether any of the scratchings will impact on the market. I've got Potts' information. I've got Dean Lester's best bets from Friday. He's a couple of sources where you can get his best for the day. Watch the market just to see, because sometimes there'll be obviously a scratching will have a big impact on the market, and usually I'll wait so I don't get a deduction. And then just start watching the market from 8 o'clock onwards, just to see the ebbs and flows, see anything going right off. Watching particular bookmakers who seem to have let good punters on, and you can see their prices go right off. That gives you a bit of a lead. And I'm really just, there's horses that you recommended you take the early price. I still hold back just to make sure I'm going to get the best price.
So for all the punters, some of those ones I recommend, there's in amongst the list, there'll be ones that I think this is genuinely the best price you're going to get. But often I'll be thinking, let's have some of our money on now, because this horse could go either way. But so it's really up to the subscribers to work that out for themselves. And in your case, you watch, and if there's a general price, you tend to...
Yeah, if you've said take the early price of $5,
Yeah.
and there's $5 on 9 boards, I won't take it.
Yeah.
It's because sooner or later someone does a $5.50, and sometimes that'll be the trigger for me to go. Sometimes all of a sudden there'll be 2, 3 $5.50s, and then I'll wait again.
Yeah.
And then you might see one go off. Certainly when it comes around to closer to race time, Betfair just gives you a 30-second price warning.
Yeah, I mean, I'm doing all this sort of stuff myself as well. Like for instance, this is use an example of Caulfield last Saturday. One of the horses that I had on the betting plan was Who's a Ripper. Because it was a second emergency, I hadn't, until it got in the field, until sort of 9 o'clock, I really hadn't had a lot of time to think about what the right price and what we were taking. By then I'd sent the set out. So I went and had half of my money on at 8.50 in the morning, not really sure whether that was going to be the best price or not. That all started at 4.80. So, I mean, what Rexy's talking about is great value in looking at all these things and trying to read where the market's going to go. I mean, I certainly didn't think that Who's a Ripper was going to start that price, but obviously one of the big pros really liked it. So.
Yeah, and that's one, you hadn't recommended an early bet on that one, I don't think, but I still watch it like a hawk.
Yeah.
And I saw the 8.50 starting to go off, so I took some of the 8.50 and then just held back a bit. Then I saw someone just clean Betfair completely out, just took every single dollar out there, and it was $2.20 or something just momentarily, but they obviously just sweeped it and said, I'll take any price that they're laying on Betfair. And that's usually a good sign.
It is.
And then a couple of other, then all of a sudden I saw 6.50s on some boards.
Yeah.
So I went back and took some 7.50.
Ralphie.
Morning, Ralphie. How are you? So that ended up being, and actually, I think I took some of the $8.80 or $9 on Betfair as well.
Well done.
I know it was only like $60 worth of it, but when it starts $4.80, you basically got $120 worth of it.
I say to the punters, mid-morning on Saturdays, if there's a significant firmer across the board of all the corporates, so if you've got your dynamic on and it goes off on all boards, that horse is going to start shorter. Doesn't matter what you originally thought, change your opinion then. Because that means that one of the large pros or several of the large pros are building a position and it ain't going to stop.
That's when it's a snowing. Yeah. It is a particular giant. And that's what they'll do. They'll just take it everywhere they possibly can, and they'll just keep going until it gets down to their mark price.
Yeah, in the good old days,
you guys heard him?
I could
eventually.
Not yet, no.
No, oh, sorry.
In the good old days, you could beat those guys in the ring because they could own. It's a physical impossibility. Some guys would run along the ring and they'd obviously 2, 2, 2, 2, and they'd have their credit limit bet from 3 metres away. And they'd obviously be quite often too fast for me, but I get the blokes off the wax. The current world with dynamic odds and corporates, it can go off on every board in 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And you can see, you hover over it on dynamic and it shows you when the fluctuation happened, and you'll see 9:07 and 20 seconds that went off at Tab, at 9:07 and 32 seconds that went off at Luxbet, at 9:07 and 47 seconds that went off at Sporting Bet. It drives you mad because...
Well, that's a signal that that's one of the very well organised teams.
Yes.
To give punters a bit of an idea about how well organised that team is, at Warrnambool, not only did they have it lined up where every price went across the board on Dynamic and on Betfair, they had 4 people in each corner. They had a corner of the ring each, 4 of them, and you were allocated in between 6 or 8 bookies. They made sure they got the entire ring when the price was going off. That's how well organised some of these big syndicates are, and this is sort of what we're up against. So if you do see something like that happening, it does pay to follow them in.
Yeah. Particularly if it's before betting's opened on the race, like on course betting, there's going to be waves of it usually.
Yeah. It's going to start much shorter SP.
But I think in one of your emails, you mentioned that you did some work with Sport 927. Is that right?
Yeah, I did. We had a show way back, I can't remember what year it was. But a bunch of mates had a show. They trialled us on Friday nights.
Yep.
A show called Blazing Saddles. Please apologise for the names because they're shocking names, but we were 927 chose the names. We did Blazing Saddles on Friday night. It was after the last trots race. It was about 10:40, and we'd go through to midnight. And a couple of boys had been at the Middle Park Hotel, and I had to come and pick them up at like 10 o'clock. So we were half cut some nights, but we did really well, and the management liked us.
So what was the show all about? What were you...
It was doing a bit of form review,
Yeah.
but with humour and just a bit of fun. We didn't take it all that seriously, and I don't think people really listened to us to hear what our tips were. But and then we got the Saturday morning gig. It was a bit like punter to punter, a bit like that, a bit of form and a bit of laughs. So we got a Saturday morning gig.
What time on Saturday morning?
9 till 10:20, something like that. After that 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock show that's locked and loaded. Then they do the scratchings till 10:20, and we come on at 10:20 and go through to the first race about midday. The show was called Punters and Collectors. And Matthew Sterling, was myself, I was punty. There was a guy called Matthew Sterling who actually just defended Peter Moody. He's a lawyer and a bloody good one. And John Hillier.
I better write his name down. I might
use him, and they're all mad punters. And John Hillier, who's Keith Hillier's son. So we had great success. Ratings were really solid.
How long did that go on for?
That went for about 4 months. But the two guys, Matthew was a lawyer, and he's subsequently become a barrister. He might have even been a barrister then. And John, they were both earning really good money professionally. I wasn't. I was just starting out, and the money we were getting didn't really cut it for them. So they asked for a raise to make it commensurate with the sort of professional incomes they were earning, to make it worth their while to do all the work and get up Saturday mornings. And they agreed to accept the pay rise, but they straight away went out to find a replacement, and they got punter to punter back.
Right.
So we got paid the extra coin for about 3 or 4 weeks.
That sounds familiar, Ralphie, doesn't it?
Ralph's here, everyone.
I actually thought that they were just having a chat, so he's just walked in front of them. Have you ordered yet? No, not yet. So I'm going to move out and I'll be back for part 2.
No, I think Ralphie's had similar experiences at the mainstream media at one time or another. But that's really interesting. Well, mate, it's been great having you on for this chat. You're going to hang around, hopefully, and we're going to go over the Caulfield meeting and everything else.
Yeah, I'll hang around.
And look, over the course of the year, you're welcome any time, and I'm sure the punters have enjoyed it. We'd love to get you back, and one day you might even be the host of the show. We want, Juppies,
Oh, all right, I'll get me coat then.
No,
I've just been given the Chaminda Vast.
No, that's not what I meant at all, Jupp. What I meant at Juppy is we need to get you as an expert commentator. I think So.
Please. The only thing expert I'm in pods is fighting value losers. Now, one more thing, Rexy, before we wrap it up. The chat room. How have you found it? How do you use it? Because I'm like yourself, I've been getting pods of stuff for a long time, and I use it differently to what you do. You're betting in some of the races that aren't on the betting plan, whereas I get pods of stuff, I go straight to the betting plan, I go straight down to that, I then go and give the bets to whoever I need to the bookmaker required, where you use it a little bit differently, don't you? You're looking at the assessed prices, you're looking at the neutral and positive and the sort of horses. So you're using it differently to the way I am, and this is something that I think the people that do get, it doesn't matter whose set you get, will probably be interested to hear how you do use it, and then flowing into the chat room, because we've got some really sharp people in the chat room, like blokes like Benicio and the what's the last 3 digits?
965.
And
he's a champion.
Yeah, he is a champion.
We've got for those that haven't ever come into the chat room, we've got a guy that lets us know there's smart money for a horse.
Hard money.
Hard money.
I love it.
And you can see half an hour later, $9, 8, 7, 6.50, 5. I mean,
it just goes.
And I've got no idea who he is. You guys don't know who he is. No. But I know, I take those warnings and I go straight to it could be 2 or 3 races in advance. Yeah. That's the thing. He gives us sometimes an hour and a half warning, sometimes it's 20 minutes warning. Yeah. But I heed the advice, and there was one on Saturday. I think it was He's a Ripper.
Yeah.
Might have been him, but whatever it was spot on. It's spot on a lot of times, and he's not the only one. There's Juppy's put me into a few where there was hard money There was a 30 to 1 chance at Caulfield one day, and you said this has been backed by the right people. It was one of those ones that wasn't in the betting plan. I thought for 30 to 1
Sign
shot,
off, I think.
I might as well.
It was sign off on Boxing
Well, I
Day.
remember there was definitely sign up was another one, and you didn't give enough on that.
Yeah.
You just said, I think you just wrote one word, sign off. Because in the end we found out an hour later that was Darren Weir's mother.
Yeah,
who backed it.
it's me trying to multitask and do 8 things at once.
Yeah, I understand
And
that,
it ends up me just doing 8 things really, really poorly.
Yeah, well, there wasn't enough of the lead there for me to back sign off. There was another day.
Yeah.
And you said hard money here for or the owners had more on it than normal. So whoever it was, you knew them. They had twice as much on it as normal. And I thought for a race where you're risking $2,000, it was worth having $70 on. I might have had more. I might have had 100, and ended up being a winning race. Just out of something completely out of the blue. They're not all like that. Sometimes you'll get led astray, but I find more often than not the little tidbits that come through from various people in the chat room, and sometimes some late selections from you. There was one on Saturday. It was a ad this, and it was a good ad.
Ocean Embers, yeah.
Ocean Embers.
Oh,
You weren't on all the...
I wasn't in the chat room on Saturday.
I can just say, look, the last month's been there's been some great additional information from the participants in the chat room. It's just been outstanding. Like the day, Moonee Valley, I can't remember what pieces of information.
I was in there that day, and there was a heap of good stuff in there.
Some cracking stuff that really helped. So there's good value in it for anyone, no matter how they do it. Like in the point that Juppy's making, I think the people that get my set and overlay it on their own work probably get the most value out of it. But if you like Juppy and you've got 10 million other things on your life and you just want to get something that's a lot of work's gone into it, that's good too. So there's something for everyone depending on how they want to do things. So that's the way it's, that's the aim of it. So hopefully that's what happens. So, anyway, as I said, mate, thanks for doing this Q&A belatedly.
Pleasure.
It was really good, and we'll go and have a bite to eat now, and we'll come back with the normal segments of the punter show.
Yeah,
Can I just repeat, I didn't actually mean to walk in front of the camera then, sorry.
well, we've got through the morning session without losing a wicket, so we'll stop for lunch now and we'll try and get through to the tea break.